I forgot I didn't mute myself.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, May 18th, 2020. This is a municipal caucus. I had a scheduled 4 p.m. start. The clock on my computer is showing 4:01 p.m. Before I go in for a roll call, an effort to adhere to the social distancing protocols and best practices imposed by the city and state authorities, the city of Jersey City has canceled all public meetings and closed non-essential services as of March 16, 2020 until further notice. As a result, this council caucus will be heard virtually as a video conference and the public has access. So may I have a roll call for the commencement of this caucus? Councilperson Ridley.
Sean, she says she's on, but she's on a call, but she hear you.
Okay.
I don't know how you want to do that, but.
Is she
She's
on? She's on? Okay, yeah, I see her. Can she unmute herself and just, by doing, you have to press *6? Councilperson Ridley? There you go. Just unmute yourself and you could say you're here.
Here.
Thank you. Perfect. Councilperson Frenzeri.
Here.
I'm here, Sean.
Councilperson Baggiano, we're just waiting to get you on the screen. There you go. And Councilperson Chalet?
It's Soleil. And
Soleil?
yes.
Only.
It's Soleil.
I'm
Yes.
butchering it. Sorry.
It's okay.
Soleil.
Yep.
Councilperson Solomon. Here. I apologize, Councilperson Soleil.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
Councilperson Robinson.
Still love you, Sean. Don't worry.
I hope so.
Yes, 100%.
Oh, that's cute.
Councilperson Robinson.
Not here.
He's in the meeting.
His picture was on.
I do see him. All right, we'll come back to him. Councilperson Lavarro.
Here.
Councilperson Rivera.
Here.
Council
Oh,
President
cut it
Porter.
out.
Here.
Councilperson Robinson, are you here?
I'm here. I just had to run out right quick. Just got back. I'm
Perfect.
here.
All right.
everyone.
Thank you so much. We have 9 council members in attendance at 4:01 p.m. At its time of its preparation, the agenda of this meeting was similarly disseminated on May 15, 2020 at 10:30 a.m. to the mayor, council, business administrator, and the newspapers, and posted on our website, so I can certify as a total compliance with the Sunshine Law. I am going to turn the meeting over now to our council president, Waterman.
All right, good evening, everyone. Sean, just take it from the top. Just follow the agenda. We'll just go through.
Okay. If we can just, there you go. All right. So we're going to move right on to our first reading ordinances. And we have one first reading ordinance, item 3.1, City Ordinance 20-039. It's an ordinance adopting amendments to the mixed-use B zone of the Morse Canal redevelopment plan.
Okay, is Matt here?
I am. Can I be heard?
Yes,
Yes,
Matt, could you
And
just
we
go
can
over
see
it
you,
for us,
too.
please?
Absolutely. All right.
Or on that
So
report.
it was the title was read. This is a proposed amendment to the Morse Canal redevelopment plan. It went before the planning board back in January, and then there was some delay for an NW financial report. which is included as an attachment in this amendment. There is also the text as an amendment. That would change the language to the redevelopment plan, and a map showing the location of the property of the petitioner who requested the review and the consideration of the amendment. So this is currently a mixed-use zone that allows for apartments above the ground floor. And what this amendment would do would allow for an additional story with the provision of 10% on-site affordable housing. In the case of this petitioner, they believe that they would result in about a 16-unit building, which would be 2 units of affordable housing at their particular site. This has limited applicability in the zone. It only speaks to smaller corner lots in this zone of Morse Canal. And really that's kind of the main thrust of it. If you have any other questions, I can share my screen and go over the text or field questions.
Okay. Was the community involved with this, Matt? Morse Canal?
Yeah, Morse Canal was presented this and actually has written a letter of support, which I've received by email.
Okay. All right. We'll open up for questions. Anybody have questions?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Rolando.
You said 16 units after amendments. What is it pre-amendment?
It's actually, it's not a density standard. It's only a bulk standard. So it's a 4-story building currently. I don't know if they could do the same number of units, but they'd be a lot smaller, obviously. But typically it would be 4 units less. So 12 units is what they think they could get without this amendment, if you use the same floor plate design or layout design.
Okay. Someone else? Any more questions? Go ahead, Rolando.
Does the applicant here have a redevelopment agreement?
I do not know. I believe that they have been seeking one, but I do not know.
But the plan doesn't call for a redevelopment agreement. I mean, we've been writing that in to some of the redevelopment plans. Is there a reason why we're not including that in this one?
There was no reason. It was the text came from their team, and I don't know if it was an oversight or not. But
I'm sorry, I lost you.
The text of the original amendment text came from their team, and then staff did revisions, but it was never included. I'm not sure if it was an oversight or not. I believe that the JCRA still has the ability to require an RDA. That's how they've. That's the ruling that they've made on how the local redevelopment housing law pertains to them. So it can be an explicit or implied. It's whatever the council feels most comfortable with, I would say.
I mean, personally, I think we should be consistent and just be explicit about requiring a redevelopment agreement. I don't know what planning's feelings are on this, but I mean, the redevelopment agreement sets timetables and for the development so that somebody just can't. And this is not particular to this particular developer or anyone else per se, but it does allow for developers to stick to a timeline and to be held accountable for developing lands that are in a redevelopment area that are generally considered areas that are in need of redevelopment, right? So there's certain conditions that need to be remediated or addressed, and so a redevelopment, the requirement for a redevelopment agreement, I personally think is a good one, and we've incorporated in several other plans, and I just think we should do that across the board at this point.
Okay.
Can I ask another question, Council President?
Do anybody else have a question? Okay, go ahead.
So the affordability requirement here in terms of, I mean, this is just the amendment, but has there been talk of the stipulations on what what's the word I'm looking for? The length of the affordability requirements will be?
I don't know if there's been talk about the length of the affordability in the NW, and it was left to the Affordable Housing Agreement as a tool that would come, and a mechanism that would come back to the board. To the council for consideration on what those terms would be. So the length and the affordability would be worked on by Gigi Gazon and her division, and then it would come back to council in the form of an ordinance. And looking at the NW financial report, that's maybe the closest thing you have right now to look at as far as affordability. It doesn't talk about the length of affordability, but it did a calculation, I believe, at 60% AMI and 80% AMI for those units.
Is Gigi here?
I don't know.
No, she's not here.
No, she's not there.
Okay.
All right.
So I would just, for the record, make it clear that just as we had with a previous, I forget, it might have been Morse Canal as well, I don't recall. But it came to us with a 20-year, so as to spare the challenges there to do a minimum of 30 years and the affordability requirements for any amendments in this area.
You can write it, you can send it out.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Matt. You cut out on me when the council president was asking you about
Morse Canal.
Morse Canal's involvement. Can you just speak to that again?
Sure. The petitioner presented these amendments, I believe, once, maybe even twice at a public meeting or community meeting for Morse Canal, and I believe that a letter of support has been forwarded on to me as well. I think me and Brian were on an email from June Jones for a letter of support just very recently. So it was after this was all submitted to the agenda.
Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah.
I'd be happy to forward it along.
Great.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Matt, can you make sure you forward it to all the council members, please?
I will do so, and I'll CC you as well, Sean.
Thank you. You're the best, Matt.
Okay. All right.
Can I-
Okay.
Council President?
Yeah.
In the resolution, Matt,
Mhm.
you said that the planning board heard this in January 7th.
Mhm.
And that adopted as was. It was suggested that there were certain, I think, recommendations from the planning board. Can you speak to that as to what was presented and what was recommended as changes?
Let me see if I have that available. One moment. I think it was mostly typographic things, so let me see if I have a version of that.
I mean, if you don't have the version, just include it in the email.
Yeah, I don't believe I have a version of that. I think it was just some more typographical things, grammar things. And then there was the discussion of an RDA, I believe, being incorporated or not. And at the time, it was put on the record that that they were seeking an RDA concurrently, so that wasn't made explicit, which I know that was an earlier thing we were talking about.
Mhm. Okay.
Did
All
the
right.
planning board have the financial analysis as well?
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else questions? Anyone else? Okay. Sean?
Okay, thank you, Matt. Next
Thank
item is our second reading ordinance, item number 4.1, City Ordinance 20-038, an ordinance amending Chapter 175, food handling establishments to include restrictions on fees charged to restaurants and food establishments by third-party internet-based food delivery services applications during declared states of emergency.
Any questions?
Yeah, Joyce, I thought
Okay.
you, I, and Philip were going to sit down and talk about this.
No, I didn't know we was gonna talk about anything, Rich, about this.
I got because I brought up a couple of questions, and he said the three of us would sit down and discuss this. All right, look, drop it, forget about it.
I mean, no, I didn't get no email. I didn't
All right,
get anything.
okay.
This is Councilperson Solomon. We did receive a number of sort of potential sort of, I guess, amendments, so to speak. I've had a chance to look at some, but not all of them. I can try to continue to look at them and send a summary. Because the executive order is currently in effect, we don't have to rush. So we could, pass it on. We do want to make changes, or Councilman Bogiano wants to make changes. We can definitely do that, and we can, either make amendments by Wednesday or table and consider amendments in the coming days.
All right, that's good, James.
Yeah. All right.
So what are we agreeing on? What are we agreeing on?
I will get back to you, Joyce, with the
Okay.
information. All right?
Okay.
And
That's all I'm not clear.
And I will
Right.
send everyone what's been sent to me so everyone has it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Sean.
Council President, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Councilman Solomon, is the executive order consistent with the ordinance as it's proposed today?
I believe so. I believe the executive order and the ordinance mirror each other, although the law department could confirm that.
Is Peter Baker here to confirm that?
Or Nick?
Nick here.
Nick is here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Nick.
Everybody hear me? So I'm having trouble with the video, but I am here, so I apologize. We drafted Councilman Solomon's ordinance today. We made sure that it was not inconsistent with any of the provisions of the executive orders regarding timing of when when construction can occur. It's all it does is modify the times already in our code during the course of the COVID-19 state of emergency. So it is consistent with the executive orders, or because it's not inconsistent with anything in the executive orders that would render it problematic.
Okay.
And just, Nick, one minor clarification. This one was a co-sponsored by a number of the council, so it's all of ours. It's I think Council President, Councilman Rivera, Councilman Prinzeri, Councilman Saleh, Councilman Lavaro. I think those are the 6.
Okay, and we can certainly make that modification prior to Wednesday, make sure anyone who is involved in the presentation or in the introduction is recognized.
Okay. Any more questions? Anyone? Okay, Sean.
Okay. Moving on. We have one public speaker, as you can see, Yvonne Bolser. We added some petitions and communications, 6/1 through 6/19. We have no officer communications. We have our report of directors. Those are the executive orders from the mayor. We have our claims list and on to our resolutions. Okay, item 10.1, City Resolution 20-337, a resolution appointing Bridget custodian of petty cash fund for the office of mayor. Item 10.2 is a resolution appointing Sheila Curtis as custodian for the petty cash fund for the Department of Housing, Economic Development, and Commerce, Division of Planning. That's resolution 20-338. Item 10.3, resolution 20-339 is a resolution establishing a new petty cash fund for the Department of Housing, Economic Development, and Commerce, Division of Housing Preservation. Item 10.4, resolution 20-340 is a resolution recognizing May as Asian Pacific Islander American Heritage Month. Item 10.5, City Resolution 20-341, a resolution to recognize May 18th as Asian American and Pacific Islander Anti-Bullying Day. Item 10.6, Resolution 20-342. It's a resolution authorizing refunds due to overpayments for property tax accounts. Item 10.7, Resolution 20-343, a resolution authorizing refunds due to New Jersey Tax Court tax appeals on various property tax accounts.
Questions? Okay.
This is 10.7, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, I don't recall. Did I send you a request to see what the actual amount was and the amount paid?
Yes, in the, it's 10.7, in the resolution, there's an attachment, and it has the amounts in there.
Of the amount paid?
Oh, I see, I misunderstood the question. You're asking for what the, I'm assuming the original amount was versus what the, okay. Let me see if I can find that. I'll send it to you
Great.
separately.
Can you send it as a spreadsheet if you have it?
Yeah, I'll look it up. I'll get it from the assessor.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Brian, while I've got you on there, so, I mean, many of these are the same property owners, right?
Yeah.
So this is like a tax appeal case, I guess. And is this a recommendation to appeal, to settle these appeals, or is it, well, actually, I don't recall, is it,
This is a binding decision from the New Jersey Tax Court. We don't have any discretion at this point.
I see, okay. I have no
Okay,
further
Sean.
questions.
Go ahead, Rolando.
No, I have no further questions.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you. Item 10.8, Resolution 20-344 is a resolution, number one, introducing and approving the 2020-2021 budget of the Exchange Place Alliance Special Improvement District. Number two, directing the city clerk to publicly advertise the budget and schedule a public hearing. And number three, directing the tax assessor to prepare an assessment roll of properties within the district based upon the budget.
Yeah, Sean, I got a question to ask. Every time they come up for this issue, nobody from their organization ever shows up.
We
How
have
come?
Elizabeth Kane on the line here. If you have any questions, the director. of
Yeah, I'd like to have it further explained. Because I understand there are a lot of issues down there with people going to their organization, getting thrown out, and it's an open meeting. Smile, Brian, but it's true. And I get a lot of the complaints, so. I'll speak to Elizabeth publicly, personally.
Okay.
Okay.
So Elizabeth, Council President, I have a question.
Well, Elizabeth, go. Okay.
Part of the resolution reads, the budget as submitted, and I'm quoting, the budget as submitted to the city is hereby retroactively introduced and approved, subject to a public hearing prior to adoption by the municipal council. Is there a retroactive? Because I thought the start date was July 1st, if I was correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm going to clarify that.
Elizabeth, are you on the line here? Just want to make sure.
That could be a typo by our office, that, we tend to use some of the templates. That could have been something that was left in there by our office, but I'll let Elizabeth answer if she is able to.
I mean, last year's was retroactive for sure. It was.
Right.
I think that's the issue. I can make that adjustment and take that language out of there.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
So Elizabeth is not here. Brian, did you send us a
Here.
spreadsheet on the budget?
The budget should be attached to the resolution.
I know, but is there a spreadsheet available? It's a PDF currently.
Well, Brian, reach out to Elizabeth to see if they could sit it in a spreadsheet form. I can't hear.
Sorry, I was muted. Elizabeth was supposed to join us. I think she's
I'm
having.
here. I'm here.
Okay.
I was
They want a
muted.
spreadsheet. Go ahead.
You guys want a spreadsheet of it?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Councilman Solomon, hi, Elizabeth.
Hey.
Question for you. Just like the capital design, we have listed. How much or when are we expecting to kind of start that project, or when are you hoping to start it?
The Exchange Place.
Yeah.
Project. I think we just finished a traffic study this week, Brian, is that correct? To
Yes.
close it as a pedestrian mall.
We're just, we are finalizing some elements of the traffic study. Yes, it's almost done. That will be the last component we need to present the ordinance to council for the pedestrian mall there, yeah.
And do we have the design of the mall that we can share?
It has changed from the last one we did.
Okay, I think.
Where's the pedestrian mall?
I believe
At the foot of Exchange Place.
Where the statue is?
Correct.
What do you intend to do there?
The same thing we've been intending to do for the last 3 years.
Yeah, well, I thought a lot of that was knocked out.
Just that the statue is remaining.
Yeah, and you're taking part of the area there away?
It's going to be created into a green space, a public green space.
Well, we have the affairs down there, the Emerald Society, the police department, every year. And it's just going to stop them from having the affairs down there because there's grass? I mean, come on, the place is...
I don't permit the public things, but if you have any questions about my budget, I'd be happy.
Right.
Yeah, well, I have a question about that because when we had the big ridiculous thing with the Patron Massacre, I thought that was taken out, especially where the hotel was going to have part of the turnaround there and take away the pedestrian mall there.
You know what? Let me suggest something because James was asking a question concerning the budget and what the projects are. Elizabeth, could you just reach out to Rich and explain to him exactly what will be down there?
Sure.
This way we can go and we can stick to the budget, the questions there.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd be happy to.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, let me just make two comments. One just for Councilman Boggiano. I'm happy to sit down with you too to review it together. We do need more green space on the waterfront. It is a missing thing in that section of Paul's Hook, especially. But we do obviously need to look through the plans. And then just to be Elizabeth, I think a couple months ago, pre-COVID, we had a back and forth about reviewing the plans, and it was a little bit unclear who had them and who could share them. So if we could just go, we don't have to do this now, but if you guys could find where whatever the current design is and send it to me, and I can share with the council, just to make sure that we're reviewing it, because my interest in terms of the budget is to make sure that capital dollars get spent in a way that meets the community needs and help the water.
Yeah, can you send that around? Just because, I'd be interested in seeing that as well. I definitely don't want to have a situation like we had, a few years ago, where we are relitigating, old cases and old issues.
Yeah, of course.
James, when she sent it to James, you'll distribute it to the rest of us, correct?
I can send it to all of you at the same time.
Okay, fine. Send it to all of us, Elizabeth. Go ahead, James.
That was the end of my question. I just need to make sure to see it, and then.
Okay. All right.
Council members, I just forwarded you guys the budget via an Excel spreadsheet. Elizabeth's staff actually sent it to our office, so I was able to forward that to you guys as well.
Okay.
I CC'd you, Elizabeth, on that as well.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Okay.
So-
Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, one second. On capital improvements, Elizabeth,
Yes.
so the entire nearly $10 million is all dedicated to Exchange Place, is that?
No, we have some Four Corners Park is going on right now. It's Exchange Place. And remember, it's the foot of Exchange Place, and then we're also expanding. The intention is to also expand Path Plaza and do a lot of pedestrian improvements on Christopher Columbus side as well. And the last number we got, rough number, because we pulled it from bid specs, was around 12 million. So yeah, everything will be going, a lot of it will be going to Exchange Place and the Path Plaza expansion.
I mean, the capital improvement dollars that I see budgeted are less than 10, certainly less than 10 million. So you said over 12 million approximately, right?
That's our last estimated budget. Obviously, every time we get one of these estimated budgets, we have to adjust the plans, cut things, maybe not plant some trees, that sort of thing. You know, the budget is set, and then once it's approved, we work with that to meet the budget demands.
Okay, can you just explain to me then, traffic calming, is that line in your budget, line 44, is that in relation to Exchange Place, or is that something else?
In some, it can be related to Exchange Place, and it can be related to other portions. We are currently taking inventory of all of the crosswalks in the district to see if they need repainting, and we're working with the Vision Zero team, you know, for bump outs and sort of thing. So we're always looking to make improvements.
And then the design construction management line 43 of that capital improvement is also, can you speak to that? Is that specific to Exchange Place or something else? Or
that could be to Exchange Place. If it doesn't get used in Exchange Place or we don't need it, it could be for the next project that we do. It could be signs for phase 2 for the Paulus Hook Park. It could be the Colgate Clock Park if we get to that point. You know, this is all things that are in motion, and so we budget for those items.
I understand, but I mean, we're and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but we're approving a budget just like we approve a city's budget, the city's budget. The anticipation or the expectation is that whatever gets approved is actually what that the activities or the projects that are being funded under that are actually going to be realized. So so saying it could be this or it could be that, while I understand that gives you some flexibility in your budgeting decisions, from our perspective, in terms of, from my perspective, I should say, just speaks for myself, that I want to have some assurances as to what the dollars are being budgeted for. So
we have it budgeted for these projects. We have a plan in place. First is Paulus Hook Park, second is Exchange Place, third is Colgate Clock Park, and fourth is the Peninsula, or whichever comes first. So in some of these, because there's such major capital improvements, we're kind of at the mercy of government approvals, right? So if I would get these all done in a year, if we could, right? But we've been working on, for example, Exchange Place, went to some speed humps. Now we're getting to the point where we are getting the traffic control. Then we have to go to the DEP, which takes 6 months, and then we move on from there. So a little bit of it is dependent on just how we're able to get approvals and how quickly that can happen. But we have all the intentions to do all of these capital improvements.
Can you break that down for me? Itemize those capital improvements,
Like our 5-year
with the
plan?
stipulations.
Sure.
Well, for this particular budget, these budget lines, like how you envision how these dollars are actually being budgeted for in this fiscal cycle, and with the stipulations, as you suggested, that depending on approvals and so forth, and which the priorities are, from the design construction to traffic calming, obviously Exchange Places for Exchange Place. So
You can send that to us, Elizabeth?
Sure, happy to.
thank you. I have another question, and just a significant part of your budget, and I wasn't able to add it up, and that's why I would like to get a spreadsheet of this, is that the events marketing promotions.
Yeah.
And so given COVID right now, and I mean, obviously this starts in July 1st, so do you anticipate still, I mean, this budget, I'm assuming, was designed pre-COVID?
It was designed pre-COVID. A lot of it, obviously the festivals, you know, much of that is 4th of July cost. That will probably be edited to be somewhere else or delayed. A big bulk of this budget is our banner and wayfinding project, which we are in phase 2 of right now. This is to help wayfinding and signage in the district so that people that live there, shop there, visit there can find their way around a little bit better. And that's going to be a really exciting thing going on right now in the phase of investigation. And now we're looking on to like doing design and layouts. And you guys will see that soon. Music events, we always partner with Riverview Jazz Fest to do Jazz on the Pier. That's usually done in late August and fall. So we're hopeful that'll still be able to happen. And maybe even be able to add on to it if possible with the budget that we have. Holiday lights is holiday lights. They're up. A lot of our holiday lights are up all year to kind of brighten up the area. We can also add to that. We can certainly expand that. Right now we have holiday lights just along the waterfront and on Montgomery Street. As you know, our district is pretty large, so any of that money can also go to expand that. Any monies not used for festivals can be used for holiday lights and expand that to kind of, you know, freshen up the holiday lights, expand them and get them into more of the district. Public art, we're moving on. We have 5 public art projects already slated to happen. That can happen in the midst of COVID, and then people can enjoy it while they're walking around, which I think is really important to get new things out. And sponsorships are things that we sponsor other events happening within the district. This could be any number of things. Could be fundraisers. York Street Project was one of them that we've sponsored. It could be other fundraisers that happen in the district that bring people that we can then push through the district for the after to go to restaurants and such in the district, and web promotion and website. That's the bulk of that. So really the actual physical public events is less than a third.
Right, that being the music events and festivals.
Right.
Right. And photography is not a physical event.
We can use photography to take pictures right now of like just within the district of the public art, for example, of the artist doing the public art, that sort of thing.
Understood.
Okay. Any more questions, anyone?
Can I ask a question related to management of the waterfront? Does that fall under your jurisdiction?
Meaning?
The maintenance and management of the walkways along the waterfront.
Each of the individual, we can oversee it and work with the property owners, but the waterfront walkway is actually maintained by the property owners adjacent to it.
Interesting. Okay. The reason I ask is I've gotten a lot of complaints about social distancing, masks, things of that nature. If you're looking to reallocate some monies, I would suggest or urge that possibly some signage in the area. I don't know if I've not been there, so I've been cooped up at home. So I would suggest or urge some signage to encourage folks to do social distancing and masks and wearing masks and.
Sure. Is there a standard? Because a lot of the places where we can also put up signage as city property. So if there's something that we're using for all the parks, I'm happy to copy that language. So it's consistent.
Sure. Maybe, Brian, can you coordinate with them on that?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Great.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, Sean.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So I'm just sending you the plan for the budget, the itemized items, right? You got the Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
And then
Okay.
Thank
you.
Hold on, Elizabeth. Either with the VA providing the designs for the Exchange Place pedestrian plaza.
Yes. Yep, got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is Resolution 10.9. City Resolution 20-345 is a resolution of the City of Jersey City authorizing the circulation of a preliminary official statement and final official statement in connection with the sale of city bonds anticipated notes series 2020B, federally taxable bond anticipation notes series 2020C, and special emergency notes series 2020D, and approving a continuing disclosure certificate with respect to said notes of the city and authorizing and/or ratifying other actions and connections herewith. Therewith, excuse me.
Any questions?
Brian or Metro, whoever.
Yeah.
Is this just a follow-up to a refunding action we've already taken, or is this?
Yeah. This is just the approval of essentially the context of the document that's provided with the issuance of the bonds that you approved as a council. I believe it was the last meeting we had the second reading ordinance for this. Yeah.
Okay. No further questions then.
Anyone else? Okay, Sean.
Item 10.10, resolution number 20-346, a resolution authorizing the City of Jersey City to accept funds from the New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety, Division of Highway Traffic Safety, on behalf of the Police Department to combat driving while intoxicated.
Any questions?
I have several, but shall I get right into it?
Yes. Anyone else? Okay, you can start. And we'll ask too.
So if you can answer this, Brian or whoever's available. The package indicated on the list, and several of the municipalities are listed, and our money, while probably more than most of the municipalities, there were some smaller municipalities that got a lot more money. Do you have any idea of how this funding is awarded, or the allocation is determined?
Yeah, I saw this question. We'll take a look and see if there's a way to find out how and why other municipalities are awarded the amounts that they're awarded. We'll get back to you on that.
And then my next question is, I mean, this is about driving while intoxicated. And at least up till now, there have been fewer drivers on the road at this point, and restaurant bars will be opening up in, well, we don't know exactly when that date will come at this point, but probably it seems like it might be sooner rather than later. And still, at the same time, those bars and restaurants will be opening up at much smaller capacities. So do we anticipate using these funds in the same way, or are we looking at using them in another manner going forward?
Yeah, we anticipate using them in the same way. One of the things that we're doing with all of these grants that come through, which has been the case previously over the last few weeks, is accepting the funds and the grants as they are, with the maximum amount of funding that we can be allocated. And if and when there's an issue or we can't spend all the money, or there's something that means that, for example, some of the youth programs that we've been awarded grants for, if we can't end up holding the program, we will figure out what to do with the grantee or the grantor. But at least we'll have the funding in place so we can use it as needed.
Brian, probably one reason why other municipalities get more money than us is that maybe they make more drunk driving arrests than we do.
That's possible. I'm not sure. I'll see if I can get an answer.
I can tell you, guarantee you, that's probably the reason.
It's possible,
So I'm certain we can probably, I mean, if the money is being used as it's traditionally been used as overtime to station a police officer on Route 1 and 9 or Kennedy Boulevard or somewhere to do DUI checks and so forth, I'm sure we can spend it in that way. The reason I'm asking the question is there another way we could spend the money that would be more effective? Like, certainly can put those officers on a post there, and but I'm going to hazard to guess that and certainly that might change. Maybe things become spectacular and people start frequenting restaurants and bars, and we reach our maximum capacity, 100% capacity for everybody again in August or September. But I think that's probably unlikely. Under those circumstances, then, could we use these dollars in other ways? And I mean, I would suggest maybe we get a little creative with this. If it's not a big amount of money at all, but we should start looking at how we can use every dollar more creatively to be able to offset some of our other expenses, but also to maybe effectuate or accomplish other goals. So I don't know about others, but I've been in. I've done 2 trips to a liquor store to buy something for some wine for the house, and the social distancing and other things like that are like not really observed. And most liquor stores, the rows are really narrow and aisles are really narrow around there, and the lines of folks who are congregated in there aren't exactly being observed in terms of capacity and things of that nature. And maybe those are ways that we could utilize that, or enforcing things like mask wearing and so forth that I've also seen are not observed going in and out of the different establishments. So that I put that out there to recommend to the if the grant allows for those sort of use of the funds, to consider using it for those purposes, as opposed to kind of stationing an officer where they may or not see a car for at midnight for about an hour or so before something comes by.
Noted. Yeah, we'll definitely think creatively about this moving forward.
Great.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
No.
Okay, Sean.
Item 10.11, City Resolution 20-347, a resolution authorizing the City of Jersey City Department of Recreation and Youth Development to accept funds from the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs under the fiscal year 2020 Recreational Opportunities for Individuals with Disabilities Grant Program.
Questions?
Brian, I don't know if I included this with my questions, but I don't recall, but the grant cycle here started July 1st, 2019, according to the grant agreement. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we'll confirm that is in your questions. We're going to confirm it. And again, here, this is another instance where we are doing what we can to accept the grant. If we cannot provide the services and the programs because of coronavirus-related restrictions, we'll have to deal with it separately. But at least we'll have the money in place if we are allowed to proceed. We'll get an answer to that question about the grant term, though.
Yeah, I mean, the grant end date is June 30th, so that would give us a month and a half to. Have we been spending down on this grant already, or anticipating like reimbursements, or is this or not?
Yes, I'll get more information about this shortly. This was something that was supposed to be on the agenda much earlier. There was a administrative issue with it, and so it was submitted much later than it should have been. We had to redo the submission, actually. So let me just confirm with Lucinda on this.
And since you're doing that, if we were spending down on this grant, can you tell us how we spent those dollars, and if there were any hires attributable to the grant?
Sure.
As a result. And then if there wasn't, if the money has not been spent down at this point, with the anticipation of, then my next follow-up question to that would be, how do we intend to spend the money within a month and a half in order to meet the requirements?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay, Sean.
Item 10.12, Resolution 20-348, a resolution urging plan companies to respect the rights of its employees to organize, to provide 14 additional days of paid sick leave for self-isolation or quarantine related to COVID-19, and to provide sufficient personal protective equipment to allow workers to do their job safely.
Questions?
At the last council meeting, this issue came up in relation to the ordinance about the special assessment, and plan companies, and Manhattan Brownstone Company was one of the property owners who. Does anyone have any information? And I just recently reached out to the attorney who was there on behalf of Manhattan Building Company. Any follow-ups from them about whether they took any action with regard to their vendor plan companies and their and their work with or their labor relations, I should say. No?
No.
Okay.
You want me to just share, like, if you read the new Department of Labor laws, you'll see that vendors are included in many of these aspects of the additional funds. So maybe we can send you the updated Department of Labor legislation around independent contractors and workers, along with the requirements for quarantine in place and the pay related to that.
Yeah, at the last council meeting, there was a worker who spoke to the council about this company, plan companies, and how they didn't provide PPE and payments, and didn't pay workers for being quarantined and so forth around that stuff. So, so the attorney representing Manhattan Building Company had assured us that he would address the matter. And just as an FYI, I did email the person today to just ask him for an update, and I'm still waiting for a response.
Okay.
No further questions.
Anyone else? Okay, Sean.
Okay, item 10.13, resolution 20-349 is a resolution authorizing the city of Jersey City to accept various gifts to assist with local response to the coronavirus pandemic.
Questions?
Yeah. Oh, do you want me to share what?
Yes, go ahead.
These are various donations accepted by the Office of Emergency Management and HHS that we've received thus far, ranging from general PPE from local foundations that work and support first responders, and then additional support that individuals are trying to donate, and we're just helping them leverage that donation. So you'll notice some donations of masks around the city made possible through these donations to all of the senior locations, all of the agencies doing work in the community, all the partners for HHS, and some support for the medical center and Christ Hospital. So we were just making sure that everything was logged appropriately in case any of these individuals were doing business with the city.
So,
Go ahead.
Stacy, the Carl Binney Fund, it indicates 5,000 masks. Were those surgical masks or N95 masks, or?
Those were, I believe those were the N95s. I can look at the list and share with you that that was the first few that came in because that was through supportive fire departments across the country and delivered to the Office of Emergency Management probably 6 weeks ago. But I think there's 3 different things that came in. There was sanitizer, N95s, and gloves.
Yep. So just as a layman, so N95 masks and surgical masks are what, like the 3-ply and 4-ply type masks?
Surgical masks are the 3-ply daily use masks, and N95s have about 100-hour usage life. Those are often utilized in the medical field and with first responders because they're often in the middle of, unknown territory. And surgical masks are used just for day-to-day individuals to ensure that they're not, carrying or expressing droplets on others.
Now, where did the N95 masks go? Do they?
They were donated to the city, and depending on need. So we have sent a significant number of masks over to Christ and to Jersey City Medical Center as early as, March 20th, I would say, probably around that time. And then distributed through, as we were waiting for the items that we purchased to come in, we utilized some N95s for first responders, so police and fire. And then most of the donations that we get, we are actually utilizing to donate to the public. So we received about 6,000 masks from a local vendor, that created them, made them. You might be seeing them around the We're All in It Together masks. Those have been going out to Healthier JC community partners. Today, all of the Parks Coalition picked up masks. Last week, we delivered 5,000 masks to senior housing facilities and masks. Like we're accepting a donation this week from the local Chabad, and those masks are going in Meals on Wheels and to Angela Cares with grocery bags. So every day it's, as people ask us for masks, we're taking from those donated masks first, rather than the ones that the city is purchasing for PPE.
Is there still supply of these masks, or I would assume they were
Yeah.
gone?
No, I mean, those particular, as you see, like the list you have has maybe like 10, I don't know if it's delineated, but we've probably received almost 20,000 masks thus far. So those are the ones that we've been handing out in group format. And as we get more, we'll send you a whole nother pile of resolutions next meeting.
So N95 masks, I mean, early on, the hospitals were desperate for them. Are they good now? Is that?
So the issue there was a supply chain concern. So they are good now. We assisted, particularly the Office of Emergency Management did this, assisted with some of their local supply chain needs and got them in touch with some additional vendors. Some people from the innovation team helped out and purchasing. As we started purchasing more for ourselves, and the hospitals were purchasing some, we were trying to assist them with how to, there were some that they weren't doing some due diligence. We assisted with some of that because we have a team here with innovation, purchasing, and OEM to ensure that there were no like counterfeit masks, people that are saying they're N95s, but they're not when they go pick them up. And there's been a little bit of that in the beginning. And then verifying agencies and companies. So as that was all happening, well, while hospitals were waiting for new masks, and I think the issue at Christ was they had masks, but the elastic, I think you were part of that partnership with Snyder, the elastic was expired. So they had like 2,000 masks and they just needed the elastic to be fixed. So they send us a report every day and they've been pretty stable with their supplies.
And we still have extra N95 masks going forward.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
We
And
have about
probably in the
100,000
next-
total masks in our stockpile right now, and we're still ordering more.
100,000?
Yeah, between the 3-ply and the N95, yeah, we have about 100,000.
Wow.
Let me just jump in here for a minute as well. And I'm glad to know that we have that amount, but let's be clear that both the Jersey City Medical Center and Christ Hospital, they do have funds to purchase these masks and give it to their employees. So I hope that they're not counting on the city of Jersey City to supply them 100% with their supplies.
We did a stopgap support services. So as everybody in the country was waiting for things to come from China that were ordered maybe in December and January when the supply chain was somewhat broken because of the virus hitting those countries at that time, it caused a lag in things showing up at the borders, and those had to be reviewed through, security, and now they're getting the items that they've purchased. So this was really an immediate need and response.
There's a point that I'm trying to make too, because I know, and I'm sure that nurses and healthcare professionals that are in both of these hospitals are not going to go publicly and say that, but I know that some of these employees are not getting masks, and we need to make sure that we highlight them and tell them that they have to make sure that they, give their employees the PPEs that are required, especially the nurses in the front line.
Yeah, and we have pretty much issued some like requirements to both hospitals, and what we're being told and what's happening, there's some wiggle room in there, but we also coordinated a group of people that are making face shields in addition to masks for first responders, and they are now, I think they have like 70,000 face shields that they've been making in partnership. They're fiscal, and it's locally made Jersey City residents that came together. And they're working with both hospitals to get them out, in addition to masks, that everyone gets their own face shields that they're responsible for, which is something that they manage, and then they get additional masks on a daily basis. Or with like an N95, that they, you know.
And the city funded that effort, the 70,000 face shields?
We don't fund it. We were helping them make the partnership that they needed. So we introduced them to the hospital partners, and they got some funding through crowdsourcing and GoFundMe, and then the hospitals are committed to taking on some of their masks.
All right. Any more questions? Okay, Sean.
Okay, item 10.14, resolution 20-350, a resolution authorizing the purchasing agent to sell various motor vehicles at public auction.
Questions? Somebody here from?
I have questions.
Oh, boy.
Brian?
So,
I'm here.
Is anybody here to speak to 14?
I can speak to it. This is something we do regularly. We do a few of these a year. I don't know if there are any other questions beyond that.
have we done bulk
Yeah.
before?
Yeah, they're all bulk for the most part.
No, I mean, according to the resolution, they're individually auctioned off, and then there's bids received for bulk, for all the vehicles.
Yeah.
And then they compare according to the way I read it. They take the individual, they open up all the sealed bids for the individual bids. They tally that up and compare it to the bulk, and then if whichever comes out higher, that's what they go with. Is
Yeah. Again, unfortunately, the issue that we have here is that the value of the minimum bid value is way beyond the value of the vehicles because of the fees that are imposed to store them.
So there's like 200 and plus vehicles in this. So is this all of our inventory at this point, or is there still more out there?
I am actually not sure if this is the entire inventory, but it's as much of it as we can get going. There are vehicles that come in every day. So, you know, from now until Wednesday, when you approve this, there will be more vehicles that come in. And from, you know, today, from when this resolution was created until today, there were vehicles that came in as well.
So, so can you give us a sense of what the inventory is, static and this day and time? What's remaining there as far as
I'll get a number of how many vehicles are there. Yeah.
So who is the market for the bulk sale, the bulk bids?
There aren't a ton of vendors that solicit bids for this sort of thing. It's usually either scrap metal yards or larger operations that, you know, use the vehicles for parts or try to resell the vehicles or that sort of thing.
I think I asked
How is
in
the
the
minimum?
past, you may have provided this, but can you give us the past sales on this?
Yeah, I did provide that in a couple of times with previous caucus.
Can you send us the latest one?
Sure.
Brian, I feel like every time this thing comes up, we like beat a dead horse here all the time. Can you kind of like give us something that we don't, you know, I mean, isn't this the same thing over and over again with these cars, or does something change?
Nothing changes. It's the same thing. Just cars on the list.
So this, you know, this is like we beat this up in length. You know, maybe we could just give us, you know, I guess a general whatever, you know, information for us to read, so that this way we could, you know, at least look at it and, you know, because this is depressing.
Sure thing.
Brian, just forward us the information that we need. I appreciate it. Thank
do.
you. Sean?
Yes. Item 10.14, 10.15, City Resolution 20-351, the resolution ratifying an emergency contract award to Golden Gourmet LLC for the purchase and delivery of shelf-stable meals for seniors due to the coronavirus COVID-19.
Okay.
So yeah, this was just what we started doing in March. There was like an extra few $100s as a change in delivery fee, so we needed to deal with this. We're taking them out into the fields and making sure that people have extra meals.
Okay. Sean?
Thank you, Stacy.
Oh, question.
Yep.
Stacy, just explain to me what shelf-stable meals is. Is that?
So it's this is an advanced MRE, so this is meals ready to eat, so it doesn't need to be refrigerated. This is typically a dry milk, shelf stable like cookie, like contained canned fruit, and then a meal that you would either heat or based on we got two different kinds, so you can heat them in the microwave or the oven, or you can eat it like room temperature. There's a water item that comes in it that you pop and it heats the food.
MREs.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Sean?
how many seniors were served with this these meals? So I know there was 19,999 meals, but
There's so starting March 1st, we started delivering the meals, the MREs to congregate meal sites because they were not logged as Meals on Wheels recipients. Now all of them are logged as Meals on Wheels recipients. So it was one of the, again, stop gaps until we were able to get them on the Meals on Wheels program and the county was able to get the frozen food delivered. So that right now we have about 1,700 seniors on our Meals on Wheels program. That's up from 563 since March 1st. So we've more than tripled our intake, and every day we are taking in more seniors. Instead of sending them shelf-stable meals, we send them a grocery bag from Angela Cares, as it takes like 3 to 4 days to get them onto Meals on Wheels, and then we start their Meals on Wheels delivery.
so these meals are just stopgaps for the Meals on Wheels.
This was in the beginning. We sent every single senior home from congregate meals like the second week of March when we decided to close the congregate meal sites with 10 to 15 meals a piece. And then we're like transitioning them on to Meals on Wheels. And then we send out to all the Meals on Wheels people, we sent out 5 of them along with their frozen Meals on Wheels, in case something had occurred that we weren't going to be able to get to them. So.
Is this cost covered by FEMA or the CARE funding?
Well, we're requesting all of this to be covered by the CARES Act. We've submitted the PO as such.
And what's the account currently?
Which account? This current account comes out of the Meals on Wheels Senior Office of Senior Affairs and Food and Nutrition dollars, but the account is set up as the Meals on Wheels account.
It's a grant account, isn't it?
What? It's a grant account, because first we didn't have CARES Act money, so we have the grant account and we got approval from our grant manager to purchase them.
Right.
And then he said, if you can cover it with CARES money, because we have not submitted any reimbursement for this year yet, because we haven't gotten the contracts from the county yet.
But that's not what the resolution says. That's
No,
what
the resolution's about the purchase.
No, I'm saying the account is an 01 account, it's an operating account.
Yeah, the 01, then it's from my office. It's just out of the director's office because we didn't have to move.
I see. And so you're going to replenish that into your budget when the reimbursement comes in? Is that how that works, or?
What happened was, in the beginning of this process, everyone kept saying, do you have money for COVID? John Mitchell moved some money into my account so that I can manage immediate needs. This was one of them, and it'll be replenished either through the grant account or CARES grant account. Either or, we expect the county to be covering these funds 100%.
Okay. Okay. Sean, move on.
Okay. Item 10.16, Resolution 20-352 is a resolution of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City ratifying the water professional service contract with Dr. Orlando Gonzalez of Life Mod LLC to conduct physician oversight of the Jersey City COVID-19 test site.
So this is because we were working with Dr. Gonzalez. He is our medical director at the clinic. His primary role at the clinic is to help us with the 2,500, clients we get annually for STIs. In order to do testing, we need a doctor to sign off on testing to report and align with the protocols. In order to do that, we needed to give him an additional contract so that we can start testing. We've submitted this PO as well to the consultant team for CARES reimbursement.
Okay. Let's move
Okay.
on.
Question.
Yes.
Question. So this was not done as an emergency contract.
It was, I did it.
Yes. Go ahead, Stacy, explain it.
So it was done as a standard contract because he's already a vendor, but it's specific to COVID as we started seeing all of the staffing. He's already on getting paid as a vendor. So we expired his current funding that was approved several months ago by you for this calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
So while it wasn't done as an emergency contract, it was done with a declaration, and this is to keep him on board because without him, we don't have any scripts from doctors to be able to call a test. So we're not just like, no one can just get a test. It's like all the tests come in his name. And that he actually has to review every single test result, sign off on it, and file that with us. And so it puts him at like great, insurance liability on his end. So
So is he the only doctor administering scripts for these tests, or?
For the health department, yes, he's our only doctor on staff. He's our medical director. We used to work with him in the form of, we pay for doctor's orders, which is a standard practice in the clinic. And that means that, once or twice a week, he would come in to see clients that needed to get specific medications that a nurse practitioner couldn't provide. On April 1st, our nurse practitioner resigned and moved to Texas. So we don't have an additional person able to administer or sign off on any scripts except for him.
Okay, Sean, move on.
Okay. Item 10.17, Resolution 20-353 is a resolution amending and renewing professional service agreement with Light the Palmer Greenberg LLC to represent the City of Jersey City and individually named defendants in various lawsuits related to the Department of Recreation and Youth Development.
Okay. Move on.
Okay. Item 10.18, Resolution 20-354 is a resolution ratifying an agreement with Union County to permit Jersey City police recruits to attend the Union County John H. Stamler, Police Academy.
I resent this, and I think we should have our own police academy. This is a shame. They go to these country bumpkin academies, they come back here, they don't know anything about the city policing, and I think it's wrong. I've been asking for 4 years, 5 years. We should have our own police academy. And when it was cut out by Kelly years ago, the business administrator, it was absolutely a disgrace.
Thank you, Rich.
I agree. So, but
Thank you, Rich.
can I ask, with regard to this particular contract, the service here starts on January 3rd, 2020. Brian, this is certainly COVID plays a part in the work, but this goes back to January. So what happened here? Or
Those recruits are still in the academy. They're just doing work throughout the city, but they're, in the Stamler Academy, but they're actually working, within the community and helping out with the COVID sites that we have. But they're available. I mean, they're in the academy and they're working.
I recognize that, and since January 3rd. So we're approving the contract on May 18th.
Right.
Yeah.
It's 5 months later.
Yeah.
5.5 months later.
I know.
Can we get an explanation from the business administrator on that timeliness?
There were some issues that we were negotiating with the academy with the legal form of the contract and the document itself. This was put forward months ago. We had to. It never even made it to a council agenda. We had to withdraw it before, just to finalize and resolve some things. So that's the reason for the delay here. And then the coronavirus stuff happened, and we were trying to keep some of the non-urgent stuff off, and they were still working on it, and it was a lot of back and forth.
Okay, Sean.
This is Councilman Solomon. Can I ask a quick question for the BA? Obviously, these recruits were hired in January, but right now, are police and fire recruits sort of, do they fall under the city's hiring freeze? So we're not bringing in new classes at the moment.
Yeah.
Update us on that.
One of the savings levers that we're implementing to keep our costs down is to limit the number of new fire and police recruits if and where possible. So of course, we're not going to go below our minimum staffing numbers, but we are not going to budget for the original amount that was requested, which I believe was 120 police recruits and 120 fire recruits for the year. We're not sure what the final number is going to be yet based on retirements and how many people we can get into the academy and that sort of thing. But yeah, long story short, we're trying to limit new recruits as well. Although those that were already in or that were already hired are still in.
Right. I guess, can I make a request that, I mean, this falls under the administration's purview, but could you inform the council if you do bring on any new classes and what numbers you're bringing on?
Sure.
Because to your point, right, we're citywide, we're doing hiring freezes. And so, we've got to sort of think through on each department, if we're going to bring anyone new in, what the right numbers are.
No problem.
Thanks.
We have to be very careful with that. I'm not a fan of not hiring public safety, so I'll be one of the first to tell you that that's not a route that we should be even entertaining.
I think you know what it is too. I think we should just know ahead of time. I think that's what the conversation really is. We should know it. That's all. We just need to know.
Sure.
Ahead of time. Okay, Sean, next one.
Hey, sure. Item 10.19 is Resolution 20-355. Resolution authorizing the Jersey City Police to accept funding from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance for participation in the BJAF Fiscal Year 20 Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program.
Question? Brian, is anyone here to address this, or is it just you?
I apologize. I wasn't able to get anyone from police to speak here right now, but if you have questions, I can certainly relay them on and get an answer through email.
Okay. So from my reading of the documentation, it seems to me that it's being spent on overtime. I'm looking for confirmation if this is just being spent on overtime or if it's being used for other purposes as well.
Yeah, I'll
meaning
confirm that.
for salaries or other things like that.
Yep.
And then I guess it's being spent, or are we currently spending money or have spent money, or is it for future spending? And obviously if it's been spent or if it's being spent already, if I can get a breakdown of expenditures, what's been spent down to date.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Sean?
Okay, item 10.20, City Resolution 20-356. A resolution authorizing the renewal of a contract with Periscope Holdings, Inc. for online bidding services through the Purchasing Solution Alliance Cooperative for the Department of Administration, Division of Purchasing.
This is otherwise known as BidSync, the online purchasing portal that we use.
Okay.
So, Councilman Solomon here, we had asked this question in the budget hearing around the purchasing discussion, but did we get the clarification on from Director Hebron and purchasing around what the system currently allows for in terms of registering? So we have data on, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, that kind of stuff.
I know that it does not provide all the information that we want, that the council's requested. Soraya is going through manually and working with department directors and also the vendors directly to make sure that we're getting that additional information.
And I think she was supposed to update us, unless my memory is wrong, after the budget hearing on the process, but also specifically, does the system, not just retroactively, but moving forward, does it include everything we need to include? So that, yes, it's 2 years ago, you're going to have to go back, but at least now everyone is putting in everything that we need.
Yeah, we're working on that. One of the things that we're doing is a separate vendor registration form that will help. Of course, it's not going to tell us every single person that submits a bid. It's only going to tell us the approved vendors, but we're working on some stopgaps as well.
Okay, I mean, I'll just reach out to her then too, but it just, before we move BidSync forward, we've been talking about it for now, the 2 years I've been on council to try to make sure this data.
Sure.
Can I chime in on that? So you're confirming that the BidSync will not be able to capture the sort of diversity type data that was that we're looking to collect there?
It doesn't collect all of it. Not all of the questions can be legally required. So we're just trying to back into it a little bit.
Got it.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, Sean.
Okay, item 10.21, Resolution 20-357, resolution ratifying the award of an agreement contract to BioReference Laboratories, Inc. for laboratory services due to COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic for the Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, Stacy, you want to explain anything or are you good?
Yeah, this is antibody testing. So we were working to manage this. We were processing items and we're working very closely with public safety and the CARES Act for total reimbursement.
Is this an expansion of the current antibody testing that's happening?
Or this is the emergency declaration and resolution because the last thing we couldn't get it on.
It was effective May 1st, so it's slightly retroactive. The funds being expended, say COVID-19 account, it's an 01 operating account. Can someone explain what that is to me?
What we're doing for simplicity's sake, as we seek to get reimbursement from the CARES Act and from FEMA, is to include every single expense that we can in a single account. So we don't have necessarily a budget allocated. We're just putting all the expenses in there. We do anticipate getting full reimbursement for everything we're putting in there. So this is not going to be an additional over expenditure, we hope. But if there's anything that we can't get covered, then we'll put it back into the departments where it should have been coming from. But it's just so much easier for us to put everything in this one account.
Understood. So every time it says COVID-19 account, this is just the bucket for.
It's really just for tracking. It's not coming out of anyone's budget necessarily.
Understood.
Okay. All right.
Can I ask though? So this is for the antibody testing. What about the Did I miss the contract for the regular testing, the COVID-19
like-
testing?
Was that 2 meetings ago or
Yeah.
1 meetings
It
ago?
was? Okay.
Yeah.
Rolando, you might have been out for that meeting that we did it.
Okay.
It was maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, maybe, yeah.
All right.
Okay, go ahead, Ron, do you have another question? Sean,
Could I get the,
go ahead.
Stacy, there's a consent and authorization documents that are that the city, according to the agreement that I saw, the city is responsible for obtaining all consent and authorizations. Can I get a copy of those documents? I've never been tested by the city, so I don't know what that looks like, but if you
Or
could.
you want a copy of the, what we asked people to sign?
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
just a blank one, right? So,
Yep. I'll send it to you.
Okay,
and is as well as any other documentation that we may be collecting from folks.
And that's really all we're collecting. And that's really, it goes into just in case there's an issue with the doctor or someone claims that, you know, they've got an antibody test, so they like stopped wearing a mask and ran through a park and got sick and they want to sue the city kind of thing. And that's not what we're doing antibody testing for. So it's very clear that, you know, one, to hold the doctor harmless for giving us the script, and two, that this is 92% accurate, and the FDA has approved at this point that antibody testing is to be used to identify plasma donors at this time.
Okay.
Great. I have a couple more questions related to this one.
well,
May I continue?
go ahead, I mean, go ahead.
Okay. So Stacy, in the agreement, it reads, in page 2 of the agreement, section 1.7, it reads, a positive result from serology test may be due to past or present infection with a different strain of coronavirus, such as coronavirus HKU1, NL63, OC43, or 22.9E, and may not indicate past or present infection with the COVID-19 virus. So can you just explain that to me? I thought an antibody test is supposed to indicate past infection.
So there's 2 parts of the test. So the first part can indicate that if you've had COVID-19, and the second part indicates antibodies in your body from those strain of different viruses that have come out throughout the last 18 months.
Okay, understood.
Interesting.
The next question is, the contract, as I read it, restricts the city to one location, meaning Marin Boulevard. Is that accurate?
So yes, at this time, that is the only location that has been cleared. So this is a blood drawn process, which requires seated indoor use, which requires a waiver from the state. So the state gave us a waiver for that particular location. And until the state opens up a little bit more testing freedom, we have not moved from that location. We're hoping by June 5th to be able to literally take it on the road, because it is a mobile unit. But the CLIA waiver is specific for that location because we need to ensure that there's running water, et cetera, on the, and that's where the state provided us the location.
Well, I think you nailed it, because I don't think CLIA is going to allow you to keep on
This is really difficult to do.
with specimen that has to be processed. You know, the reason why CLIA does this is that so it can be limited to one area where the specimen can be processed and picked up. So I just don't think that CLIA is going to give you the green light to go anywhere else throughout the city. I'm sure that it's going to remain there.
And just so you're all aware, that Saturday with the state, we had our county related call. We're hoping to see more broad testing. Joan and I were on a call to deal with specific to going into senior housing, having a senior open their door, get tested and close their door. We're working on a series of ways to add testing. Another lab has just asked for permission to use the parking lot, do their own testing with their own doctor, utilizing insurance. And the state has given us, we're waiting to see when we get the saliva tests for nursing homes to like speed the process up. And so we're working, this is all on ourselves. The state hasn't given us any support here. So we're doing everything we can with this support. And this was like the only place that they were willing to budge with us is this one location at this time. Because they prefer it indoors, they prefer it in a lab. This is the first mobile unit in the state.
Can I just jump in and just ask you a quick question, Stacy? So the medical center has a mobile unit that does HIV testing, does diabetic testing. Why can't the Jersey City Medical Center mobilize a unit like that, which they're clear, they have the clearance? Why can't they do something like that?
They probably could. I can't really speak. I can ask Michael tonight and get back to you. They probably could do that, just like Christ Hospital could do that. They also have a mobile unit, but that particular mobile unit there is funded specifically out of HIV money. So they would have to probably make a request to the state to get a waiver. We haven't gotten any HIV specific waivers. All of our HIV testing is, either done through their mobile unit or in-house at our space. And so I'll ask Tina to follow up with that, see if they could do something.
Okay. All right.
Can I just ask a question related to testing of Stacy?
Mhm.
Stacy, have we done testing on site at Jersey City housing locations?
Yes, we have. We've been to Curry's Woods and we've been to Berry Gardens, 2 locations. And this Friday we're at Hudson Gardens, and then coordinating with the Garden State Episcopal Homeless Outreach Center. And then tomorrow and Thursday we're at Pershing Field. And then next week we're going to be at Booker T.
Sorry, you're going to be at Hudson Gardens next.
Friday, on
Yep.
Friday. And then next Tuesday and Thursday we're going to be at Booker T.
And Holland
And
Gardens?
go ahead, Rolando. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Holland Gardens? Is that on the?
Holland Gardens is not on the list only because it's so close to Marin, but we are also doing a drive-through at the By Right starting next week.
Okay.
And it's not going to be run by us. We're just giving permission for a lab and a medical doctor to use that facility for drive-through testing.
And
Denise, you had
Stacey-
something?
Yeah, Stacy, I was just going to say, thank you to Health and Human Services and Public Safety, because the testing in Cary Woods and Berry Gardens went really well. And a lot of residents were happy that they had that opportunity. So thanks, guys.
Okay. Okay, Sean?
Okay, item 10.22, resolution 20-358. It's a resolution authorizing the waiver of the 20-day waiting period pursuant to NJSA 40:69A-181B for ordinance 20-038, amending and supplementing chapter 175 food handling establishments to include restrictions on fees charged to restaurants and food establishments by third-party internet-based food delivery services applications during declared states of emergency of the municipal code.
Okay. Next one?
Next is item 10.23, resolution 20-359, a resolution ratifying awarding an emergency contract award to Thomas A. Alloy, I may be mispronouncing that name, Jr., Grant Right Management for the purchase of FEMA disaster recovery and grant consulting services due to COVID-19 response for the Department of Public Safety Division of Office of Emergency Management.
Council members, this consultant is purely working on the reimbursements for the CARES Act at this point, and if and when we get to that point, they will be doing the FEMA reimbursements. They are a FEMA specialist. They have previous experience working directly with and for FEMA. So they know exactly how to make this work. They're working for other municipalities in the county of Hudson as well. So that is the purpose of this. They are 100% reimbursable under CARES Act and FEMA guidelines as well.
Okay. All right. Sean?
Item 10.24, Resolution 20-360 is a resolution ratifying an emergency contract award to SureTox Laboratory LLC to provide testing for COVID-19 to senior citizens at various sites throughout the city of Jersey City.
So this is what I was just talking about. This is one of the agencies that'll charge direct Medicare at senior facilities where seniors won't need to leave their home. At this housing, general like buildings like Grandview and Boyd McGinnis, et cetera.
Okay. Next.
Item 10.25, Resolution 20-361 is a resolution authorizing the City of Jersey City to submit a reimbursement application and, if awarded the reimbursement funding, execute an agreement with the County of Hudson to receive stimulus funding provided to the county pursuant to the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act.
Council members, this is the boilerplate agreement with the County of Hudson. This is the agreement that every municipality in the county is reviewing and approving to allow us to accept CARES Act funds. The CARES Act, the way it's working is the county is getting the dollars from the federal government and dispersing them to the municipalities directly. So we don't expect there to be a maximum amount of funds that they will reimburse for us. It's just a question of what we need. And again, it's essentially, and on a broad level, anything that wasn't originally in our budget that we are using as a result of coronavirus related activities, operations, and services.
Okay.
So there's no maximum, but is there a floor?
There's no, I mean, I guess we could submit for $0 and get nothing. There's no minimum either necessarily.
And so is it basically like first come, first serve and?
Yeah, it is. So it's essentially whatever the cities, municipalities in Hudson County are spending, they will get reimbursed for. We don't expect the funds to necessarily run out anytime soon. We hope it's enough. We think it's enough, but we'll see where things go. We're not totally sure. We're still doing our own projections, even though we've spent a lot of dollars and we've been doing a very good job analyzing our budget over the last 2 months. It depends on how long this lasts, to be honest. You know, at this point, we think the amount of funds that the county has are sufficient to cover everything. But if this goes on for another 6, 8, 10, 12 months, we'll be in a different situation.
If I recall correctly, and I don't have the document in front of me right now, but the May 22nd was the deadline for the first submission of reimbursements.
Yep. We're working with the county on that. And this vendor, Thomas Alloy, who is helping us with the reimbursement, he's graciously begun working with us before his contract was approved, just to make sure we meet that deadline.
Can we get a copy of the what the reimbursement request will be? And
sure. Well, yeah, once we submit it, we don't want to send you something incomplete. So once we submit it, we'll provide to the council.
And what do you anticipate after this May 22nd deadline in terms of future expenses to be reimbursed? Do you have
the way the county's doing it, the county's requesting quarterly submissions. So the May 22nd deadline is for essentially anything that we've spent in March and April. And then they have subsequent deadlines for other spending periods. So there will be a time, I think it's in July or August, for the next 3 or 4 months of the year. And they're going to go accordingly like that. We're just trying to get that first amount done quickly.
Right. But do you have for beyond the first quarter submission, an idea of what your expenditures are going to look like, from contact tracing to facilities to isolate people after testing and tracing, and then temperature check equipment, whatever the case might be?
Yeah, what you'll see in the submission for April and March is probably going to look a little different than the submission that we would send for future quarters. just because we weren't totally sure what would be reimbursed by the CARES Act and FEMA. And so now that we know a little more about that, we'll be able to start spending on some of those things a little more. Contact tracing is one thing that we're still not totally sure how we're gonna move forward with this. Stacy's working with the state on that, and it's possible that the state may be funding some of it or all of it. But we will be able to do so through the CARES Act as well. So there's a possibility that there's additional contact tracing spending and salaries that we would be submitting for later.
Yeah, I think what we did just now, Brian, is we submitted all the hours and times that all the current staff have been doing contact tracing up until Friday, and then we'll submit any more. But we've been told as of June 1, whoever's not on HHS's original budget that the state pays for, they will hire directly from the state people to work and be housed through the county's Hudson County Regional Health Commission to be doing tracing, in addition to, a few of our staff that are already disease investigators that get Office of Local Public Health. But everything prior to June 1, we're charging to CARES Act, and if we get other money, hopefully it's from the state.
Okay.
Can you give Brian and Stacy what else might be covered under this this CARES Act funding? So, for example, rent relief, would that be covered?
At this time, no. At this time, nothing related to small businesses or anything external to city operations. However, we are working with the county to try and figure out a plan for that. We want to make sure that the money received, and I'm not trying to speak for the county here, but they want to make sure that the money that they've received from the federal government first goes to making sure that the cities don't go bankrupt and they can fund their immediate urgent operational needs. Once we've gone through those needs and once we have a projection and an idea of how much we're going to need to, for example, like make sure our budget doesn't fall apart, then they're going to think about small businesses. They're going to think about other things like that.
Okay. Okay, Sean.
Okay. Two late items. First item is item 10.26, resolution 20-362 is a resolution encouraging Congressman Siri and Payne and Senators Menendez and Booker to introduce changes to the Federal Telecommunications Act to give more authority to municipal governments regarding the placement of 5G cell towers. Next.
Sean?
Yep.
Council President, if I might, just as a heads up to the council, this is Nick. This is the resolution we had talked about 2 weeks ago, encouraging changes to the federal law consistent with what the council had discussed 2 weeks ago. I also wanted to make sure the council was aware that Cross River Fiber has filed suit in federal court. However, in the event that this ordinance is taken off the table agenda and passed, that would render that lawsuit moot.
Okay.
There's been a number of emails coming around, and Joyce, I think you were sent one today by my aide and all the council people. At least I hope she did. There's a number of arguments on this.
Can I ask a question to Corporation Counsel on this? Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we said during the public discussion that the federal regulations give the city 150 days from the day of the application to consider.
The application came in January. I think it's 120 days, so we actually just passed it.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to.
I don't think that the issue is the exact timeline. I think the concern, based upon my reading of the lawsuit, is the fear that the council will not take it off the tabled agenda to take action on it. I think the goal of the lawsuit is for the council to take positive action on the ordinance. And it's not so much a hard and fast issue with the timeline.
Okay, great.
And to go back to Councilor Boggiano's point, while I understand everything that you had said at the council meeting 2 weeks ago, I understand the perspective of some citizens regarding this issue. However, this technology has been deemed safe by the FCC. The federal law, which I understand by this resolution, you're encouraging Congress to change. The current state of the law does not allow individual municipalities to make their own determinations regarding the safety of 5G technology.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
More questions? So Nick, we would have to take it off?
Yeah, procedurally, and Mr. Clerk, please correct me if I'm wrong. It has been gone through public comment before it was tabled. So I believe the council has the option to untable it at the meeting on Wednesday. Mr. Clerk, is that correct?
Okay,
That is correct, Nick.
So you can untable on Wednesday and take a vote.
okay.
Could you go through that again? As to why we have to do this?
As I mentioned to,
Hello?
Hello? Nick?
We lost him. He'll dial back in.
Okay,
He was having problems with his video and just signing on, so hopefully we'll get him back in.
okay.
I'll read the last
Okay.
item, and once he comes back, we'll
Mhm.
revert right back to 1026. Okay, so next and last item is 10.27, Resolution 20-363. The resolution of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City requesting that the United States Census Bureau and the federal government extend the deadline for collecting 2020 census data.
This was a
Okay.
request from Councilman Robinson to add.
Okay,
Yes, thank you guys. I hope you guys are able to support it. I hope you guys will come on and sign on as a co-sponsor with me. I just did it because I know they've been like, playing with the numbers to move it back and forth, but looking at the state of what's going on, Jersey City is at 43% right now. I know myself and Deja had a lot of meetings set up. The first one that we had was at Fountain of Salvation Church on Communipaw Avenue, and that was in early March. And the rest of the meetings were canceled, of course, because of COVID. I know they moved it back to October, but they're saying that we're not going to get a vaccine until, to next year sometime. So I don't understand how we couldn't move forward because, the part of the city I represent is having a hard time, filling out. And I wanted to go out and do door to door. I wanted to do some churches. I wanted to really get out to the community to get the word, spread. But because of COVID, we wasn't able to do that. And I'm just a little afraid that if we don't have time to actually get out to the community, then we won't really get the full effect of how many people we have in the city and how many people are supposed to fill out for the census itself. As we know, a lot of things on the line. It's starting with, hundreds of millions of dollars, legislation, number of people we have to legislate us down in DC, boundary lines. The lines of most of the city are going to move during the next census, and I just want them to move correctly where, it still gives us an opportunity to, have representation to help us get everything done. So if you guys can, like I said, just support it. And, hopefully every city and every state around the country will, get involved in trying to push this back as far as possible so we can get an accurate count. So thanks.
okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Councilman Robinson, you have my support for this. I think it's a great idea to push back the dates, given everything we're dealing with regard to COVID-19. Just a question for you. So the self-response phase to submit the census either online, by phone, or mail is no later than July 31st currently. And so you're with this, and then the census has already pushed it back to October 31st. Is that accurate? Or you're requesting it to be amended?
No, it's already they pushed it back to October. I'm asking for extra 4 months because I'm still waiting for us to get this, word on a vaccine. And as soon as we can get a vaccine, we're thinking about, the end of the year, early next year. And if we get a few more months after that, I ask for 4 months. And I think we have time to really get out into the community to make sure that everyone fills out. and get properly notified.
So then that would make that self-response phase somewhere around or expire around end of February.
Yes.
Is that accurate? So
Yeah.
what comes after the self-response phase?
That might be a question for Deja. Let me see. I do have it in my notes if I can pull it up. BA, could you help me here?
Don't they send people around to houses that haven't responded?
I mean, they supposed to, but that's
Yeah, I'm not
how are we going to send people to the houses is the question.
Yeah, we got to check with Deja on that. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, Deja. Yeah, Deja. I do have. Let me see if I can pull up her emails.
Jermaine, people go around to houses that haven't responded, and they knock on the doors and try to get them to respond.
I mean, that's supposed to be the next step. But if we don't have a vaccine in place, then I doubt very seriously if anyone's going to knock on any doors, and that's why I'm asking, for some time.
Okay, so we'll check with Deja on that.
Yeah, let me see. Self-response, group quarterlies, non-response follow-up. So the non-response follow-up, well, that's the last one. It was supposed to be August to October. That was what the last thing I got from Deja. The non-response follow-up was supposed to come August to October. So I'm assuming after October, the self-response, then we go to a non-response follow-up, which is, knocking on doors and getting out to the community, making phone calls. But without a vaccine, I doubt very seriously we're going to have that time. So that's why I was just asking for some more time to extend it. So this way, once it is, in February, we'll have time to get out to the doors and knock.
Yeah, they don't go into the house, Jermaine. They knock on the door. The people open the door. They ask the question. They could stand back 6 feet. There's no up close contact.
So maybe we should get you and your team to go out and start knocking.
So then, Councilman Robinson, just to clarify this resolution. I'm sorry. Then is your resolution also asking for the non-response follow-up to get pushed back to post-February, so March, April,
February,
May?
right? Yes, and then I would ask the same dates and times. Those August to October, that same amount of days to come right after the self-response.
Okay. So my only just reading it for the first time is that final resolve then. While it says a self-response deadline, extending this 2020 census self-response phase deadline by 120 days, and any other deadlines by the same 120 days or something to that effect.
Right.
Self-response phase and as well as all other deadlines by 120 days, so that the non-response deadlines also extend appropriately.
Yes. So everything 120 days, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did Nick come back with us yet?
No, Nick can't get back on. He said he got kicked off, and so he can't even get back on. So what I told him to do is just to send us email explaining what he had said, and also be ready for Wednesday to explain it again. Okay.
Are we up against that 150-day deadline?
Yeah, I think we are. That's why I think we are.
What was the application?
That's what he was saying. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Brian, you were going to look into that. When was the application start date?
January.
Yeah, we looked into it. I believe the period, if it didn't just end, it ended already, or it's going to end very soon. Sorry, but yeah.
I believe what Nick said, it started sometime in January.
January, correct.
And it just expired.
Yeah. Okay.
Any questions that you have for Nick, though, I think it would be best if you can email him, and maybe he can even answer your emails over this period before we even get to Wednesday, but he'll be ready for Wednesday, I'm sure.
Yes, he will be.
So the 150 days is expired?
That's what
Nick said. Yeah, that's what Nick said.
Yeah.
The other night, he said it was 120. He said we had 20 more days or more.
No, he didn't say we had 100. He didn't say we had 20 more days. He said it had expired. That's what he said. That's what I thought I heard him say anyway.
Last council meeting?
No, he just said it. He just said it.
Oh, now, yeah, but
Yeah, he just said it.
yeah, just now.
Yeah, he just said it. All right.
So do we, I guess Nick should send that out to us. Can we get that it already expired?
Yes, he's gonna put everything in a email to us. And Brian, just follow up to make sure that he put the date in.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Sure thing.
Can you put in, include in there, Brian, ask him to include the 150 days from the date of application? Like, how is that deadline set? Like, is that set by us or is that set by FCC or?
Yeah, the FCC sets that deadline.
I'd like them to provide that legal citation on that if they could.
Okay.
And that, council members, it's interesting. So I just had a conversation this afternoon right before this caucus. We're talking to a couple of folks involved with 5G and cell towers, and I don't know if we've talked about it much. They talked about how in other municipalities they're doing co-location of co-locating poles and cell towers, cell installations, small cell installations, so that people are sharing poles. I think brought this up in the last conversation as well, and I guess they coined a term called pole proliferation, meaning every telecommunication company is going to come to us looking to install their own small cells and looking to install their own poles because they all want to be able to control their own networks. But in fact, we according to the people I spoke to, that we don't have to succumb to them on that. While there may be rules at the FCC that this pole proliferation and this idea that that there's a pole for every telecommunications company, that we don't have to succumb to that, and that we can urge them or maybe even require them to share poles in that regard, because there's that going back to kind of the aesthetics, that we do have some control over that, as well as kind of some of the locations to make sure that it's not obstructive to the community in that sense. And so, I mean, if you can imagine, I mean, we've already approved 2. This is the 3rd. There could be an endless number of poles littering our right of way.
Brian, wait, let me just step in here. Brian, when they presented to us, didn't they said there was some type of conversation or some concern in how they're going to place these poles? And even when it comes into the historical district?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is that they are going to share with us more detailed drawings and visualizations of what the poles are going to look like for your council members' approval before we install any new poles. I do vaguely remember some discussions around pole sharing, and I can't remember if there was a legal reason why we couldn't do it, if there was some other liability why it was suggested that we couldn't do it. But that still doesn't, I remember some of the concerns from the council being that 5G in general was an issue, and so I don't know if that solved that issue.
Okay.
Joyce?
Council members, this is Nick, I'm back.
Nick.
My 2-pronged authentication timed out during the course of the council meeting, so I apologize for the delay. I had to re-sign in and come back in, so sorry about that. But I think I'm coming in halfway through, so whatever questions the council has for me, I'm happy to answer. I apologize for the delay.
Yeah, I have a question. Have congressmen or senators gotten involved or even answered any of the questions? Have they tried to delay this?
I am not aware of, well, the Telecommunications Act goes back to, I believe, 1996. So this is not a new law, okay? I'm not sure what action the current senators and congressmen would take or would not take. The purpose of the resolution before you is to encourage them to take action.
Right, they're aware of this, Nick. They should get involved.
And maybe that's the case from your point of view. However, I just caution you, that's not the state of the law currently. My job is to tell you what the law is. I'm telling you what the law is. It may not be what you like it to be, but that's where the law currently sits.
Okay. Now, Nick, concerning share polling, do you have any information concerning that when it comes to installing these 5Gs? Because I know Councilmember Londo was expressing his concern and information that he received that is a possibility that there could be share polling instead of everybody just putting a poll up everywhere.
My understanding is that's the preferred course of action for most vendors because it's more cost effective. I'm not sure exactly whether each particular poll needs its own poll or the existing infrastructure would work for it. Brian, I don't know if you have any information regarding the details of those polls talking to the vendor.
Yeah, I just mentioned this before you came back on, but I vaguely remember a discussion around this, and I'm not sure if there was an issue around liability for having multiple vendors on the same poll. I don't think that was an issue, but also that they were going to provide us more information about the aesthetic of the polls either way.
So if I may, Council President, just since Nick was away. So Nick, I was explaining while you were away that I had spoken with an expert who's involved in this industry as well. Basically they explained that for these telecommunications companies, while they may share polls like on a PSE&G poll and things of that nature, which they've explained and shared with us as well, that they don't really want to share with their competitors, right? So AT&T doesn't want to share a poll with Verizon, and they don't want to share with Sprint, or Crown Castle or Mobility or whoever the company might be. And so they all want to install their own polls because they want to be able to have physical control over their networks. And so while that may be desirable for them, for us, it's a aesthetic nightmare because you have polls proliferating, and I was introduced to the term, and I just had this conversation today, so I'm just learning all about this today, was the term poll proliferation. And so you get polls proliferating throughout our rights of way throughout Jersey City. And while there's an aesthetic issue there, there's just the idea that it's taking up our rights of way in and of itself. And so that while we may not necessarily, where the FCC may have certain jurisdiction that as it pertains to this issue of aesthetics and with regard to kind of making sure that it's not obstructive to the public in some way, and not necessarily talking about health issues here, but that municipalities do have some jurisdiction over this in terms of being able to. It was explained to me that we do have some jurisdiction. That if you were to look into Princeton, I was told, I'm just looking back at my notes on this, that they require 2 or 3 carriers, it was suggested to me, to be on a poll. So I'd ask that we look at that before we take another step forward into this, before just authorizing another vendor to establish a poll and establish another precedent around all of this.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, Sean.
Okay, with that being said, may I have a motion to adjourn at 6:04?
Motion to
Yeah.
adjourn.
There's no
Motion
speakers?
to adjourn.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilperson Rivera, seconded by Councilperson Prince Airy. On the motion to adjourn at 6:04 p.m., all council members by acclamation, please say aye.
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 We are out of here at 6:04 p.m. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, always remember to adhere to those safety protocols. Make sure you're wearing those masks and those gloves when you're out and about. Have a great night. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Sean, there were no speakers?
This is Caucus, Rich.